Arizona realtor Courtney Van Cott knows how to close the deal on a new home. At work, the 29-year-old puts on a smile, but underneath,
you just have this cloud over you every single day.
for nearly 4 years, Courtney has been consumed by a legal
meeting or process is both an art and a science. We work closely with clients to define specific This month, our
Wow. Yeah, I'd already good. Shut it down. Okay.
Everybody continue reading. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Centralina Regional Council Executive Board. It's great to have everybody and a lot of faces in person. Before we get started with my comments, I'd like for everyone to introduce themselves, including staff. We do have some new faces in here, a couple of newbies. Bobby Conklin, Commissioner of Town of Mooresville. I'm your chairman of Centralina Executive Board.
Narissa Claiborne, I am the Centralina Board Administrator.
Jay McCosh, I'm the vice chair here of the Centralina Board and also council member in the town of Mechanical.
I'm Patty Crump, and I'm a new council member in Stanley County and a new member here.
Brian Helms, Union County Board of Commissioners, also a new member here.
Martha Sue Hall, Mayor, don't look at me like that. Mayor Pro Tem for Albemarle. And I'm the oldest rat in the barn.
By years of service here, not by age.
Jock Woodburn, Anson County Commissioner and Secretary.
Tony Long, Commissioner, Hill, and this is my first meeting here as well.
Sean Rush, Mayor Pro Tem of East Spencer, and this is my first executive board.
Jerry Oxer, council member in town of Troutman, also my first meeting. Thank you.
Jennifer Teague, Mayor of the Town of Harrisburg, and my first executive meeting as well.
All right.
Well, welcome, everybody. I'm Michelle Nance. I'm the Senior Director here at Centralina. Good to be here.
And I'm Linda Miller, and I'm the Aging Director.
And I'm Kelly Weston. I am the Government Affairs and Member Engagement Coordinator here at Centralina.
I'm Geraldine Gardner. I'm the Executive Director.
Introducing you.
Okay. I'm Venetia White, and I'm the HR and Operations Manager.
I'm Denise Strasser. I am the Finance Director.
And who do we have?
I am Michelle Yard with Centralina Support Services.
Dante Anderson, Charlotte City Council, District 1.
Welcome, thank you.
And Kathy Davis, Lincoln County Commissioners, Lincoln County.
I have one more.
Vanessa.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lenessa Hawkins, Grants and Contracts Administrator. Good evening.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, everyone that called in or is virtual. And thank you, everyone present. Wow, a lot of new names and new faces. And I think it's wonderful. It's great. What Centralina is involved too with everybody getting involved like this, whether it's through elections or anything else. Welcome, especially City of Charlotte. So welcome. We missed you last time, and I talked to your mayor. So we welcome you to our meeting. As you know, the February 8th annual Board of Delegates meeting, the new executive board officers were sworn in. I'd like to welcome our newest executive board officer, Treasurer Corinthia Lewis Lemon of the town of Morgan. Incumbent officers are Mayor Pro Tem Jay McCosh, who's the Vice Chair, Commissioner Jarvis Woodburn as Secretary. He'll be sworn in as one of your agenda items, and myself sworn in to serve another term, and I thank you for that. Also at the February 8th meeting, counties caucus to select a delegate to represent that county on the executive board. I'd like to welcome our newest executive board members. Those who were introduced, thank you so much. It's wonderful having you here. I'll just go over the names. Mayor Pro Tem Shawnee Rush, Commissioner Tony Long, and Mayor Pro Tem David Cho of the town of Stallings. Of course, the other newbies, Jerry Oxer with Troutman and Jennifer Stepp from Gastonia, I appointed at large seats to also be on the executive board.
So which ones are the appointed ones?
Jerry Oxer at the town of Troutman is right there. And Jennifer Stepp from Gastonia. That's OXSHER. She was looking at you, Jerry.
I was just looking at the name tag.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your continued service. As Jim Frost used to say, we all wear different hats. And this Centralina is a different hat. I know the size fits you well. Because we love having you involved. And you've got a lot of things going on. Those who have called in or virtual, we're very aware of what you do, where you're at, and what everyone does here. So I'm one of you, and is welcome to do that. And just on another note, this meeting is being recorded. Centralina does that all the time. It's on the YouTube channel, I believe. On the roll call comments, I have a procedural note. The 2023 Executive Board meetings will be held in person with a virtual option, just as we had this evening. We encourage you to be with us in person, but it's more important for your participation. So those who did call in or virtual, we thank you for that, regardless of the format. So we're no longer a statewide state of emergency order. We are no longer required to conduct votes via roll call. So that saves a little bit of time. That was a little bit of a hassle for our administrator. Instead, we resume our normal voting method of ayes and nays after a motion. I think, look at the agenda, we only have one motion. We'll get into a little bit further. Because we have some members attending both in person or remotely, I'd like the clerk to call the roll at the beginning of the meeting, so everyone's aware of who's present. We can establish a quorum. Now, we did for introductory purposes earlier, that was just for each other, so we know who was who. We have so many new faces, but this will be official roll call. Next, we call by alphabetical order by last name. I'll now ask Carissa to call the roll, please.
Dante Anderson. Bobby
Present.
Yes.
Patty Crump. Present. Kathy Davis.
Present.
Kevin Devaney. Martha Sue Hall. Here. Brian Helms.
Here.
Jean House. Bob Hovis. Corinthia Lewis Lemon. Tony Long.
Here.
Jay McCosh.
Here.
Jerry Oxer.
Here.
Lane Powell. Sean Rush.
Present.
David Scholl.
Here.
Lynn Shu. Jennifer Stepp. Jennifer Teed. Here. Jarvis Woodburn.
Here.
We do have a quorum, thank you. David Scholl, Mayor Pro Tem, Town of Stallings, just arrived. We had a little introductory, go around the room and introduced ourselves.
You just did a great job for me.
me.
Running late, I'm the golf coach at Porter Ridge High School, and we just, I literally left at 4:35
Don't
to
tell
get
us.
here, so.
Don't tell us how.
Wow.
No, I didn't speed. It was just, I was cutting it close, so.
Well, thank you. If you had a chance to look at your agenda, including the consent agenda, there might be an additional correction on item 4. And I know it was on mine. I'm not sure about yours. And I'll get to it here in just a second. But I'll just run through the introductory comments on the consent agenda. Obviously, it's approval of the minutes from January 11th Executive Board meeting, approval of the Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaboration Vaccine Grant Award, approval of the NCDOT FY24 Public Transportation Program funding, and finally, the approval, this is my addition on mine, I'm not sure about yours. The approval of the Centralina Economic Development District Board appointments. Mine did not have David Hollers, Executive Director of Centralina Workforce Development. His board seat is at large. And Shelby Emrich, if I pronounced that correctly, she's the President and CEO of Anson County Chamber of Commerce, and her board seat is for Anson County. Those 2 additional names on my agenda, and I'm not sure if you're set or not. So with that addition and correction, may I have a motion to approve the consent and the regular agenda?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if this is in order, but I would prefer to remove item 2 for discussion, please.
Item 2, okay.
I would move approval of 1, 2, and 4. Strike that, 1, 3, and 4.
1, 3, and 4 to the regular agenda for discussion. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, motion to approve consent agenda
Okay.
items 1.
So we do have approval
3,
except
and
for
4.
Second that.
a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We will move item 2 to the regular agenda. And we'll pick that up at the end of we'll make that up at the end of item 10. We'll go back to consent item 2. Okay, have the bring your attention, please, agenda item 5, Centralina success story, board facilitation, strategic planning. This is something we've never done before. So, turn it over to our executive director, Jonathan Carter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So, moving forward, for all of our executive board and our board of delegates meetings, we're just going to take a moment at the top of the agenda to lift up some of the work that Centralina is doing across the region, and in a different format. So instead of having a presentation, we have these little videos that we'll be showing you. We're going to be focusing on a success story from our work or a service offering. In this case, for tonight, it is a service offering and a success story in one little video. So we invite you, after we share this video, to make any other comments or observations, especially if we worked with your community in this capacity. So hopefully the technology works, and I'll get out of the way.
This month, our spotlight is on Centralina's meeting facilitation and strategic planning services, led by our government affairs and member engagement team. This work supports our effort to equip local governments with information, resources, and technical assistance that enables them to do their best work. Designing and facilitating an effective meeting or process is both an art and a science. We work closely with clients to define specific meeting objectives, develop a customized outcome-oriented agenda, and design interactive activities to engage participants. As trained facilitators, we are flexible, neutral, and focused on creating an environment that enables everyone to fully participate. This fiscal year, we are working around the region in large communities and smaller towns to support board retreats and full strategic planning processes. Several communities work with us on an ongoing basis. This is a great way for our team to build relationships with your community and provide support as you make critical decisions. We've been supporting the City of Albemarle and Stanley County for the last several years. Our collaboration has evolved from facilitating their annual budget retreats to leading a full strategic planning process that includes a community survey, annual work plan, and monitoring and evaluation plan. If you'd like our help in designing an effective meeting or are ready to create a strategic plan for your local government, please reach out to our team. We look forward to working with you.
Great, so just a little something we're doing differently to share the good word of our work and highlight how we're working with different communities. So just want to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Paul, who we've been working with in the city of Albemarle. We worked in Harrisburg with
web of services across the region for people to be able to maneuver is to not just have those vehicles meet, but actually have a location shared.
More highlights from our YouTube channel. And we worked most recently in Stanley County with Commissioner Crump. So just want to open it to the floor to any members of the executive board who have any questions about our service area or want to share any experiences with working with us in this space.
I'll go first and share. It was truly a great retreat that we had with Centralina coming in to facilitate that. But quite a few new council members, new mayor, so trying to make sure that things were where they needed to be to kind of kick things off was super important to us. We had a very, we've outgrown our vision, I guess you could say. So they were very instrumental in coming in and helping us really kind of dive deep and come up to a consensus that better serves our community than the one that we have. So we really appreciate you guys being here. Absolutely.
I think that's important. If you're new and you have some new board members to have Centralina come in and facilitate that, get you right on track and move forward. Very good.
I'm yielding to my friend on the right first.
Well, I would just say we had a great experience too. We really, I think it went so well, and I realized the value that you all brought to the meeting when we had some really robust debates about a few things. I mean, it was very calm, but we wanted to keep on, about things. And so they had great ways of interjecting and kind of stopping and saying, what I'm hearing is this, and what I'm hearing is that. We had some exercises that we were able to really think about the things we're all wanting to talk about, but then we prioritized them. It was color coded, and when we were finished, you know, it all came together and we could see where all the dots, the colored dots were together. And so we saw what we do have in common. So it was nice. Definitely would highly recommend.
So on the very first picture that you saw just a moment ago, it was not Albemarle, okay? It was somewhere else and I couldn't tell where it was, but it wasn't us. But it could have been. It could have been because the folks from Centralina who do this have a skeleton, if you will, of how they want to do things and how they want to facilitate things. The dot exercise, the sticky note exercise, the parking lot that they stay very in tune with, that sometimes gets, things get in the parking lot that they never get addressed. So I will give them big attaboys for taking care and dealing with those as they came along. We've been doing it, I don't know how long in the city of Albemarle, maybe 3 years or so, maybe since COVID, I can't remember. It is a consensus builder and you're able to feel not intimidated when their things get contentious or get questioned. And I think it is so much better, and I say this with most genuineness, coming from a person that's been doing this for a long time, is if you can have somebody from the outside come in and do it and not depend on your staff or our staff to do it within our own entity. It's so good if it's somebody from outside. It allows for then much, in my opinion, for your conversation where you're not trying to stab our staff when you question things. But I mean, really, it is. I mean, you feel like you could do that because it's not a personal thing. It's definitely on a more professional stance. So, I mean, I appreciate it. Now, I will tell you, with all of that said, that's for a strategic plan. I personally still love hearing from department heads on things that they want, capital ideas that they dream about, things that they need. And then that's when I really want to put the staff to work. If you're going to have this capital improvement plan, my God, you got to fund it. You got to have a way to fund that. So even though we do this, I still like hearing from the folks whose feet are on the ground in the departments. And the same way here. I mean, you know, and Linda I'll use as my guinea pig. I want to hear and see what Linda wants with aging services. I mean, I feel like we got to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Look at your agenda packet regarding the same thing, media design and facilitation, what we do. Please read that. Recent partners, you can see what's been done. And then it's like Mayor Pro Tem Hall stated, it's good to get somebody from the outside, but I will say, look, while work with us, we know the region. Might be an outside organization, but Centralina knows the region, knows everybody on what everyone else does and what you do. That really helps too. There's also having the skills. That's great. Any further questions, comments before I move on? Thank you. Before I move on to item 6, Elaine Powell, Commissioner of Mecklenburg County, is joining us. Thank you, Elaine Powell.
Hello.
Earlier, we did introductions around the room, so let's go ahead and throw your name out there. Here she is. Speak to wrap the meeting. Commissioner Powell, thank you for being involved. She's in what we call ward, area 1, region 1.
District 1.
District 1. District 1, which is North Mecklenburg. Davidson, Cornelia, Summersville area there. So yeah, it's a busy area for Mecklenburg, not just the city of Charlotte, but that line areas north of Charlotte are really, really busy. So keeps her going. Okay, agenda item 6. Because Commissioner Woodburn wasn't last meeting, he is to be sworn in as Centralina Executive Board Treasurer.
I thought he was board secretary.
So I'm sorry, Secretary.
It says treasurer in here, but it is
I'm
secretary.
leading right along here. That's all right. So yeah. So Centralina, the rest of us were sworn into February meeting, and Commissioner Woodburn, who never misses a meeting, it's happened in this one. That's a rarity. This man has better attendance than anybody. So Mr. Woodburn, well, glad you're back in this position and join us on the officers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did miss being here. I was definitely incapacitated when we did. Okay, the oath of office. I, Jarvis Woodburn, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, and that I will faithfully and impartially execute the duties of Secretary of the Centralina Council of Governments.
Mr. Woodford has been a valuable asset to this organization as delegate and an officer. Again, this is very, very few meetings, and we appreciate that. Very loyal, drop all the way from Madison County. So, Commissioner Woodford, thank you and welcome. Thank you again for what you do. We'll move to agenda item number 7, executive board orientation for the FY 23-24 forecast. I'll now call on our executive director to provide executive board orientation and forecast of upcoming meeting topics.
All right, wonderful. Well, I would like to wish all the women in the room a happy International Women's Day and thank you for your service in all your capacities as elected officials and as staff and leaders in our region. Appreciate that. And I also wanted to wish Councilmember Anderson a happy birthday. She is her birthday today, yet she is with us, and I just wanted to express my appreciation for that before we get started. All right, let's see here. There we go. All right. No, I'll see. I'm just gonna.
We're fine. Don't move. Don't.
Yeah, I'm blocking here. Okay. All right. So I'm really excited that we have so many new faces on our executive board. It's wonderful to see all of you taking an interest in getting to know and working with our organization at a deeper level. And I appreciate, of course, our returning executive board members, those who have to be here, like our officers and our county commissioners. This is an important meeting because it's the first one in the series for this session. So I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into the roles of the executive board members and give you a little bit of a forecast for what's coming in terms of the types of decisions that you'll be making over the course of the year. As well as how we've incorporated the feedback from the delegate interest form exercise that we did at the February Board of Delegates meeting. All right, so this information you've seen before. We briefly went over it in February before you stepped up to serve in this capacity. But briefly, we'll go over in more detail, the executive board members really play an important role in acting as a decision maker for our organization, being a collaborator with us as we develop our work plan and think about how we spend our resources and our capacity in service of the region. You're our networkers in terms of connecting back to other delegates in your counties and your neighbors and colleagues and friends. So helping us make sure we have great participation and helping us understand if there are any barriers to people's participation. And finally, you're our allies and advocates as we work together to advance a regional agenda with our partners at the state legislature and in the federal government. So just kind of going in a little bit more detail and talking about your role as a decision maker. So starting, I believe next month, looking at Denise, there'll be a series of budget amendments that will be coming your way that close out this fiscal year. And Denise will talk more next at your next meeting about that. You also approved the budget or recommend approval to for the full budget, which was done at the board of delegates meeting last month. There are certain contracts approvals authorities that are delegated to this board above a certain dollar amount, depending upon the source of funds. So those come to you usually on consent. There are several contracts for services that Centralina procures that will be coming your way this year as well. An important one will be the audit contract. There's an RFP currently out now for audit services. And that decision will be, or recommendation will be coming to you in June of this year. Policies and procedures also come to this board, amendments to our personnel policy manual, In April, I typically put forward a recommendation for compensation for next fiscal year. That will be coming to you at your next meeting, as well as an updated compensation policy that's part of our continued implementation of our pay and class study that was completed last year. So just a couple of forecasted items coming your way. The audit is always presented in November, and our auditor makes that presentation for your approval. All right, next forecast is around being a collaborator. So for those of you who have been on the board before, you know that we prepare an annual work plan each year that guides our priorities and our activities in line with our strategic plan. So we use our April meeting with this group to get your initial impulse into what you think are important issues for Centralina to focus on in the coming year. And then we have a session with all of our delegates, the May meeting, to kind of broaden the conversation and to put forward some ideas for them to react to. And then you will receive the work plan for approval at our June meeting. And then we usually do a briefing to the full delegate group in August. So what you're experiencing in your communities, the issues that you see that may affect the region, we really value your input. It helps us ensure that our work is responding to local needs as we also look at the bigger regional picture. So this upcoming work plan development process is going to be pretty important, and we're excited to engage with you as that moves forward. Another way we like to collaborate with you, and tonight will be a great example of some of our key initiatives. So you all have heard about Connect Beyond, our regional mobility plan. We also have a regional economic development strategy and other types of programming where, again, hearing from our members about how do these big regional plans or small strategic initiatives impact your constituents and your local governments. What should we be thinking about as we plan and move to implementation? The last role I want to talk a little bit more about is your role as a networker. We did manage to have quorum at our February annual meeting, which is great. It's kind of minimum operating level. It's just to make sure there are enough people in the room to do the business of the organization. But there were a lot of gaps in participation, especially in certain counties and certain individuals who really come quite regularly to Centralina's meetings. So we want to really, this year moving forward, leverage the executive board to help us in securing people's participation. We all know that you are busy, as the chairman mentioned, wearing many hats. We know sometimes it's not possible to make every meeting. So what can we do to reduce barriers to participation? What can we do to follow up with people before, during, and after the meeting to ensure that really folks have the information that they need, they know how to access our services and support, so that we're in that cycle of continuous feedback loops. So some things you can do, I've noted here on the slide, we're communities that have not yet appointed a delegate. So if you're in that county, help us, or you know someone in that community who's an elected official, help us make that connection. If there are barriers to participation, especially for our outlying counties, I know traveling in February back home at 7 o'clock at night when it's dark is not ideal. So if we need to add back in the virtual option for our board delegates meetings, or if there's an opportunity to do carpooling, let us know so that we can strategize and collaborate with you together on that.
And that is for delegate meeting, that's not for executive meeting.
It's for whatever is gonna help you all participate and really reduce those barriers and make it as easy as possible. So we do obviously have the virtual option for this meeting. In November, the executive board, after some discussion, wanted to move our board of delegates meetings back to in-person, following, obviously a long time of being virtual. But we're happy to do hybrid options again. We just want really to make sure that people are connecting for the opportunity. All right, before I move into the feedback we got and what this means for topics of future meetings, are there any questions, comments, or suggestions about your role at this level of the organization? Everyone feeling pretty comfortable with that? All right, so in February, we did an in-person exercise where we asked you to talk to your neighbor and fill out a short form to help us understand what are the issues you care about, what are the services you'd like more information about, how can we better serve you? In our follow-up to the Board of Delegates meeting, we put that survey online and invited people who weren't at the meeting to also give us feedback. So you can see on the screen here, the top issues that delegates care about in your communities. So planning and growth, transportation, economic development, you can see those listed here. Hopefully they're not too small.
And they're in our packet though.
And they're in your packet. And then on the other column, it's the work and services that you would like to learn more about. So some of the things that we do that you either think would be helpful for your community or you would like to hear about in a bigger setting. So we've taken that input and we've thought about, well, how can we make the highest and best use of your time when you come together for these meetings? We've got business to attend to, but we also want to make sure we're providing information to everyone that's going to be useful about your membership. So just want to go over a little forecast of some items coming your way as we start to prepare for the coming meetings. I'm gonna have to pull this closer so I can see. So as I mentioned in April, we will be, or as I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, we'll have a Centralina spotlight at each meeting. So in April, we'll hear from our planning department about their services. We'll have advocacy updates. We have invited Senator Ted Budd to attend the meeting in April. We're still waiting to hear back from his office regarding that. He may attend virtually or in person. But we like to use our Leslie Mazingo, our federal relations consultant, to help build those relationships with our delegation. And then the topic in focus will be broadband and digital inclusion planning update. So this is a new work stream that Centralina is embarking on, and we'll hear from our Community Economic Development Department a little bit more about that work and engage you in some discussions about what that might mean for your community. In June, we'll be spotlighting our workforce services and particularly focusing on how that can be a resource for hiring in your local governments. And we'll focus the majority of our time on the fiscal year 24 work plan. Yep. For the September meeting, we will turn to a spotlight on housing issues. And the in-depth discussion will be on resilience and natural resources programming. So that might include discussion topics around stormwater. Generally around this time of year is when the BRIC grants start to come out, which is the infrastructure improvements for critical infrastructure. So we might have a grants component to this. We're still kind of working through the details, but generally that would be the topic. And then your last meeting of the year in November obviously focuses on the audit, and we'll do a deeper dive at that meeting on our progress towards implementing the regional economic development strategy. So that's a little bit of a forecast from the executive board. Any comments or feedback? Does that look like some interesting things that we'll bring to your attention? Anything missing or anything you'd like to hear about sooner rather than later?
I see some heads nodding, so I think we're
That's
on the right
good.
track.
That's a good sign.
And again, this came from you guys on that form you filled out.
So last but not least, in terms of our Board of Delegates meeting, obviously it's a bigger group, so we like to hopefully leverage good participation and do a little bit more interactive exercises and discussions. We'll be featuring for the Centralina Spotlight in May, our grant services, since we know that's a high priority for many communities. We'll be talking about our work plan And since data and trends was a topic of interest, we're going to be doing a little bit of an issue briefing about what is our data, certain data points in our region telling us about key issues and future forecasts for our region. Not to steal Linda's thunder, but Linda Miller, our aging director, has put out some information data sheets about our aging population by county in each region. So we want to take that data point, for example, and talk about what that might mean for services and the impacts on housing, transportation, but we'll do that across a number of issues. In August, we'll focus on aging services for our spotlight. We've invited Senator Tillis to attend our August Board of Delegates meeting. No confirmation yet, it's still a few months away. And we'll be doing an in-depth session on mobility programming. And that can include a discussion of electric vehicles as well as Connect Beyond and other topics. And then lastly, in October, we will do our annual report presentation. In comments and feedback from this year's process, we're going to spend some time at that meeting talking with all delegates about Centralina leadership positions and doing some recruitment for board officers. So that process will start a little earlier this year, and we'll really utilize the Board of Delegates meeting to take time to really walk people through that opportunity. And the in-depth discussion will be on healthy communities programming. So that's our lineup for the year. Again, happy to take any comments or feedback on things that you'd like to see added to the roster of topics.
Just two comments. The two times that you're inviting both Senator and Bud, excuse me, Senator B and Senator Tillis.
Yes.
Are they home then, or
Yes.
are we, they are?
They're home.
And I think just because we've got new people here, I think that we need to really give a 2-minute talk on that.
Sure.
And that would be, and I will offer it, I'll set the stage and then you can finish that up. You know, in the calendar, both in the House calendar and in the Senate calendar for the Capitol, they have times when they're home. And that is when it's really important for us to get with them because they're here in their home territory. People might see them in church. They might see them in the grocery store then, like they see all of us. So attaboy to you all in inviting them when we know they're home. So I'll shut up now, it's yours.
We ask every year. One year we got a video address, which is great. And they're very busy people. We like to ask, we like to show we're interested, provide a platform. And we're real lucky, especially with Senator Tillis, that Leslie has a great relationship with his scheduler. So we'll just see, but yes. In addition, August is usually when we do our general August advocacy activities. So we typically set up meetings for those of you in certain congressional districts. So try to meet with your representatives. So that's also something we do in August when they're home.
And another follow-up, not to that, but to what your plan of action is, the RFP for audit services that you've got going out. That is to start with fiscal year 24. Is that right? This one. Okay, so starting with the current year. Just as a follow-up, that again to my new folks on here, not just new to COG, but new to being elected. How long have we been with the current firm?
So we initially, to Rebecca, we were with them for 3 years when Marcia was here.
Right.
And then when she left, I was rather new to the whole organization and government. And we requested that they stay on for another 3 years till I got my people.
Okay, so the current group has been with us for 6 years.
Yes.
And I would offer to my fellow elected folks, okay, the audit is for you in your county and you in your county and us here. It's not for Denise. It's not for our appointed people. They are reporting to us. We are the ones that are held feet to the ground with any audit. And so I'm glad we're going back out. And this will then start for current year. So when are we allowing that contract or deciding that? In June. In June. So oops. So whoever we give it to in June will have to hit the ground running, because if they're coming back to us in October and the fiscal year just ends on June 30th, that's a big. So I just would offer that to my new folks on here, because I know what it's like to be new and wonder what the heck's going on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes my presentation.
All right, any further questions before we move on? That was a lot, that was good. You should have the information, most of that information in your packet, so I'll be sure to take that with. All right, just entering the room, I was gonna say early on, we did introductions early when we got started, so we have Corinthia Lewis-Linden, who's our treasurer, seated right here, and then Jennifer Stepp, appointed at large from Gastonia. So that's here, so wow, we have 4 hours. It's good, along with those who called in and virtual and in person. This is a great turnout. All right, may I have your attention, please, to agenda item number 8. So Raleigh Relations Update. I'll now call Kelly Weston, who are Government Affairs and Member Engagement Coordinator, to present an update on Centralina state government engagement activities. Of course, Kelly used to be our board administrator, such as Narissa's doing, and she has moved to this position and has kept her busy. So Kelly, if you proceed, please.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the purpose of this item tonight is really to provide you all with an update on where we are with implementing the Raleigh Relations strategy that you all approved back at our January meeting. And so since we have some new faces in the room, we thought it would be a good idea to kind of do a little bit of an overview of what Raleigh Relations is. And so about 2 years ago, really 3 years ago now, back in 2020, we decided to add another component to our intergovernmental affairs program, and that was a state engagement piece. And so we've been calling that Raleigh Relations. And Raleigh Relations really is just really kind of a focus on expanding our engagement at the state level. And it consists of 3 elements. Relationship building is really that foundational element that everything else is built off of, but that really involves strengthening the existing relationships we have with members of the General Assembly, as well as state agencies, and then also working to cultivate new relationships as well. The second element is statewide advocacy, and that's really supporting the solutions to the common challenges that the other councils of government across the state share. And then lastly, regional advocacy, and that's really raising awareness at the state level of issues that are really impacting the Centralina region. So these are 3 interconnecting related elements that work together to build this Raleigh Relations strategy. And so what we did last year was we started developing an advocacy agenda to really advance Raleigh Relations activities. And so we spent some time starting in the summer with looking for identifying some potential priorities that we could focus on. We engaged the board as well as our regional managers group, and also talked internally as well as worked with our state lobbyist, Chris Wall of EQB Strategic, to come up with some potential strategies to help us advance those priorities or address those priorities that we had identified. We drafted that plan and then presented that to you all in January for your endorsement. And so we now have a formal advocacy plan to guide our state engagement and advocacy over the course of 2023. And so really the agenda is focused around 3 categories of advocacy priorities. The first is funding for Centralina. And so that's where we're going to be seeking funding for specific areas related to our work. And really kind of going back to that relationship building, that's a really important piece with that, because before we can make any kind of ask for funding, we have to have those relationships and be able to leverage those relationships. The other category is monitoring, and that's where we're tracking and reacting to state legislation. And then lastly is alignment with other organizations, and that's where we're tracking and supporting the advocacy activities of some of our partner organizations like the League or the County Commissioners Association, and also through our engagement with the State College Association as well. And so what you can expect from us in terms of seeking your support for this advocacy agenda would be kind of related to those different buckets of funding items for advocacy items. For funding related priorities, we would be asking you to assist with that relationship building piece. So assisting with outreach or communicating with members of the General Assembly, we'd be providing you with talking points to support that. And then also we'd be coming to you at these meetings to request specific action around certain priorities or direction, or just providing you with updates on some of our progress. For monitoring items and also for items where we're aligning with other organizations, we'd be providing you with updates at these meetings as well. But we'd also want to hear from you on any types of local action that your communities are doing that align or support some of the advocacy priorities that we've got in the agenda. So this is a snapshot of the 2023 agenda that you all approved. And we have 9 items on it. The first 3 are those funding items. And just wanted to kind of provide you with an update on where we are, since we just a couple months into this, but just an update on where we are in terms of implementing the strategies that are identified in the advocacy agenda. So the first is the Connect Beyond Regional Mobility Initiative. So we did this week seek or submit through our lobbyist funding requests for those 3 funding items, including Connect Beyond, supporting smaller communities with seeking funding for electric vehicle infrastructure. And then the third one is doing some work to help implement our comprehensive economic development strategy. So those requests are going into the General Assembly this week for the funding, and we'll be tracking that and providing updates on the responses that we've received. You'll hear more about the Connect Beyond from Michelle in just a moment. With the monitoring categories, there are actually 3 of those that where we're actually in alignment with some of our partner organizations. So the League and the County Association are both have, of course, aging infrastructure in their advocacy agendas. The League is also looking at tracking legislation for taxing authority for local municipalities, so they're supporting legislation around that. And then, of course, Medicaid expansion being supported as well. And so one question that we have for you all is, given the progress that some of our partners are making and that these items are also on their agendas as well, we wanted to hear from you all on if there are any adjustments that you'd like us to make at this stage in the agenda. If there's anything that maybe from the monitoring category that you'd like us to move to the alignment with other organizations category, I think that input or feedback would be helpful. So I'll pause there, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if you leave your agenda packet, it's on page 37, 38. You have to turn the book sideways, or you can turn the paper sideways. It's some of what Kelly's talking about, what she said on the screen there. Let's look at your agenda packet. I think it's important too to align with other organizations. Some of you with Ed here on the executive board and the delegates are big league municipalities and association of county commissioners. So anyone here and is still associated with those organizations. I don't know what this all is. I think Commissioner Howe, who's not with us tonight, but he's on our board with the county commissioner group. So having voices like that, this group and those groups plays a very important part of this. Because you can speak for all these organizations.
Medicaid expansion, we're already partnering with the Association of County Commissioners.
We have not done any partnering with them, but since it is on their agenda too, we wanted to get your input on if you want us to leave it in the monitoring category, or if you want us to kind of move it to the alignment with other organizations category. We'd be kind of supporting and aligning with their efforts and activities.
I might add that there is strength in numbers. One of the things that COGS need to realize is that we are counties and municipalities. And if we can find things that we agree on and can sing kumbaya, and somebody else has already taken the lead on them, we need to jump on that ship. And if whatever it is, when there's stuff that we can agree on and somebody's taking the lead, I think that we do need to move from monitoring to alignment. Local bills and bill passing in that April, mid-April deadline for bills. So, you know, by this time we come together next month, we'll definitely know what's out there and who's basically taking leads on things. But anything, I truly believe, anything that we know somebody's already taken a lead on, it would be great for us to sign on to them as well. I'd go back to the funding, to the funding ones for Centralina 1, 2, and 3. Yes, we're working with our whoever he is in Raleigh. I can't remember what to call him.
Chris Wall.
Chris Wall. However, do we know if we have any champions of folks that are here that are willing to push it, to drive it, to introduce it, and those kinds of things? I think that's a big thing when, you know, we got that. It's like the kids at Christmas. You got this long list, but is there somebody that's going to take? Is Aunt Susie going to make sure she takes this one? I mean, how are we going to do that? So I guess my bottom line is on the funding, do we know folks that will take the leadership on those things?
So not to steal from Michelle's presentation, but we have been working on cultivating some support with legislators. So yes, we've met so far this year. We met with Senator Johnson from Union County. And we also have a good relationship that we're developing with Senator Newton as well.
And guys, just a reminder for our new people, in our 9 counties, we have 40% of both houses in our 9 counties. If we can't get it done, then we need to go back home. Think about it. 40% of the House and 40% of the Senate comes within the representation of our 9 counties. So that's a lot. Our regional council is looked upon as the largest, as the most influential, as the most positive directed in the state. So they're looking to us moving forward. I mean, everybody else is looking, they're really looking to Geraldine, okay, and her leadership and things from our staff. So I love where we're headed with this. And I think us taking the ball, particularly with the Geraldine, with the forum and where the forum's gonna go, I think that this is wonderful.
May I add to that, there are 16 council of governments in the state. We're called Centralina Regional Council, and there's some other ones that are called regional councils, some are council of governments. Same thing. There are 16 of these organizations of the state, and we're the largest, we're the best. We can get it done.
I'll take it.
Sure. I thought I would say that. That goes back. Oh, yeah. And that goes back to the numbers thing that Mayor Pro Tem Hall stated, because of our 9 counties and our population here and who represents us in Rockland. And you guys are very important. So we got you touch on.
So if there are any other adjustments that you all would like us to make at this time, we could certainly look at doing that. But I think the feedback that we've heard here is moving the Medicaid expansion one to a alignment with other organizations would be what you'd like to see.
I'll speak against that. I prefer to keep that in monitoring. Medicaid expansion is a very difficult and complex topic. At this point, I would be in favor of keeping it in the monitoring stage.
I agree with that. 100%.
Kelly, is this something that after this meeting, as we have time to review this and get back with you in a certain time frame?
Absolutely, we can revisit this at another meeting.
Yeah, unless there's an urgent need to make changes. I mean, the session really just started, and so I think we can work what we already have and keep things the way they are, do another update in April and see if that time anyone wants to make any changes.
Let us go ahead though and move the aging. Let's take the aging infrastructure. Because we know that we know that the cities and towns have taken it on and the association has taken it on. I think that just adds a little more oomph, if you will, for those agencies to know that we are supporting it. So I would love to see number 4, aging infrastructure, to go into alignment with other organizations. And I would go so far as to also adding within that motion to moving the taxing authority for local municipalities. I would like for that to go into alignment. So I'd put that in the form of a motion. those two.
So as far as the aging infrastructure is concerned, the description I've got in our agenda packet is support legislation funding and other efforts to improve aging water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation infrastructure in all of our communities. I'm not completely opposed to that, but I'd like to get a little bit of clarification. So what we're trying to accomplish here, improving existing facilities, or is this expansion to water and wastewater utilities?
In our initial discussion on legislative issues, which I believe was in October of last year, the feedback we got from the Board of Delegates at that time was that the priority was on the condition of existing infrastructure and trying to support that. And that's why we chose that wording.
Gotcha. All right, thank you very much.
Anything else?
I don't know if you have a second to my motion.
Well, I mean, this is to receive this information, provide feedback.
Well,
I don't,
but
does it need a motion?
But I'm asking that we move it from monitoring to align with other, and I don't know that we need that, but I think we probably need to, if we're gonna move it from monitoring to align with others, then I think you do need a motion.
Is there anything else before we make a motion on that one? Anything
Two.
else on this two? Anything else sticking out? Martha Sue, say the motion for those two.
That we move the monitoring, aging infrastructure and monitoring tax authority for local municipalities from monitoring to alignment with other organizations who have already, as designated in the partners, have someone addressing the issue.
We have a second, Councilmember Step, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Sorry, Kelly, you got more work now.
That's clear.
There was just one last thing I wanted to mention before we moved on from this item, and that is, we're engaging with your legislators. We're here to help with that. So if you have not already established a relationship or even just a connection with your state representative or senator, we can help with facilitating introductions. We can also help you provide talking points to you for advocating on behalf of Centralina around the region, around some of those priorities that we mentioned. But also, we can also kind of touch base just ahead of a meeting you might have to strategize on kind of your approach to that meeting. A lot of those meetings are very quick, very short, very time constrained. And so just coming up with kind of an order and an approach to those meetings kind of help you prepare beforehand. So we are here to help. And Mr. Chairman, that is actually all I have.
Any further comments or questions?
Regarding this very slide right here, is there a specific contact with Centralina that would expedite that process?
So even after tonight, as I stated before, you got your backup with you. If anything comes to light, got a question, I'll Kelly Weston here at Centralina. The rest of you good on the motion? Yes. All that. Very good. We'll now move on to agenda item 9, advancing the planning committee update. Michelle Nance, Centralina Senior Director, give an update on advancing the planning committee, which is an ad hoc subcommittee that was established by the Centralina board to advance recommendations of the Centralina and Connect Beyond.
So as noted, I would like to give an update on the Connect Beyond project. We've got some new people in the room, so I'm going to give just a wee bit of background about what this is before I go into this committee that's been formed and give an update on that group. Before I even do that, you'll notice some pretty pictures here on QR code. We're going to do some engagement a little bit later on. As I'm walking through these things, if you see a slide you're not really interested in, take a moment, take your phone, and use that to get on the QR code. It'll take you to a website, or there's a website here. If you can't get on immediately, don't worry. I've got a text option for you. We've got plan A, B, and C. But I just wanted to let you know kind of what this was. And if you want to start on that path, that'd be great. So all of you know, being part of Centralina, you know that what we do is we bring communities together and we're looking at shared issues. And by and far, transportation is always, seems to be always one of those things that people want to talk about. And in order to protect the investments that we've all made in our roadway network, we know that in our fast growing region, we've got to look at other ways to get around, both within the region and throughout, and reduce the demand on those roadway networks. So knowing that, and also knowing that our federal folks, which Kelly has talked about and taught us, they want to see that we're speaking with one voice, we're working together, and then we have a coordinated approach to how we're going to use the investments that they give us. And so that's why in 2020, actually just a few weeks before COVID, we started the Connect Beyond plan to really look at what are those strategies that we can all agree on need to happen right now in terms of helping our mobility throughout the region. And so we brought stakeholders together. This happens to be out at the airport across 12 counties and 2 states to create a path forward, thinking about local mobility projects, but also connecting them to a more regional system, right? The partners, just real quickly, included folks like the Metropolitan Transit Commission, which is the policy board for CATS, Charlotte Area Transit, but also all of the MPOs in the area, all of the RPOs in the area, so your transportation planning boards, and North Carolina and South Carolina DOT. Okay, so a pretty good group, folks that are concerned about transportation. There were 5 big moves that came out of the plan. You'll see those here. We won't go into those in detail, but basically creating mobility friendly places so that you're building in a way that allows for that transportation to occur, like bike and pedestrian networks and greenways, expanding the mobility choices locally, strengthening rural to urban connections, especially for economic development purposes and employment purposes, building a better bus network region-wide, and then investing in strategic mobility corridors, which gets into some of our larger roads in the region. So knowing that all of that was going on, first of all, the plan is done. All of the MPOs in the region on the North Carolina side, the RPOs have affirmed that plan. They're like good to go. And so we're starting implementation. We knew that some of the more hairy issues were going to be around future transportation funding and future how we work together, so governance issues. So they let staff loose on some things, but on those issues, no, we need some other folks in the room for that. So the board pulled together an ad hoc group that is a subcommittee of the Centralina board to really work on this plan, to think about those hairy issues, how do we move things forward, specifically around funding and partnerships. Why is this important? Basically, it's a way for groups from all across the region, rural, urban, suburban, to get together to talk about some of these major issues, and really have a platform for that, a platform and a forum to discuss kind of their needs and how that fits into the bigger picture. There are some handouts around the room of this slide, because I know it's kind of small up here, that shows you who is on this committee. And you'll see in a light blue text, those folks that are actually on the Centralina board or the Centralina executive board. Now, joining them, we have managers from across the region and from the counties. We have some business leaders and some transportation leaders. So it's kind of a mixed group, public and private sector, to start thinking about these things. They had a meeting in January. They're going to meet bi-monthly through the end of the year. But the important thing is, what are they going to do? So they've got some lofty goals, for their first year, things they want to accomplish. And it's really looking at some short-term opportunities for us to be working together on some of the recommendations in the plan, but also thinking about long-term, a regional governance approach, right? So we might want some near-term wins, but some of these things are going to take a little bit longer. How do we all work together? What does that look like? What changes need to be made? They also want to think about some communications. So the media gets it right sometimes and sometimes they don't. But what we found is there's been some confusion around what is Connect Beyond. And the committee said, let's think about having some talking points that we can agree on. And so there's actually a group coming together to work on that. What messages might resonate with an elected official, maybe at the state level, right? So in Raleigh, what resonates with our public, what resonates with the business community. And we're actually going to do a little work on that in just a few minutes. And then last but not least, how do we collaborate with those state lawmakers? They want to know that we're speaking with one voice, but what are we saying to them? And how are we using that communication framework to educate them on what Connect Beyond is and let them know that, if they can approve some implementation of that, that would be even better. All right, so like I said, they had their meeting in January. They identified some key messages that they wanted to take to Raleigh, but they're going to get more of that through some homework and also what you're going to do tonight. And then some near-term collaboration ideas of what they wanted to do. And they said, look, when we come back in March, we know that some work has already been done, but let's look at a kind of a way that another region operates in terms of its transportation and transit. And so they said, let's pull Richmond, Virginia. We're going to do a case study. They're going to basically say what they like about it and don't. And that's really going to give us guidance to what they might want to see moving forward. So there's been a few things that the staff has been working on in terms of some technical expertise. We've got an on-call consultant that's now on board. And then we'll see more about transportation demand management in just a second, but also on the communication side, we've got a newsletter that goes out and on the education side. So we continue to make sure we offer things for the staff in this region to learn about innovative upcoming transportation issues. And we've got one coming up later this month on transportation in a post-pandemic world. What's changed? What do we need to be talking about? So one of the things that we are kind of rolling out immediately is called transportation demand management. And it's basically a way that we can look at all the transportation that's available, not just cars, to get employees to work primarily. A lot of people in our region are going to work across different county lines. And so we've got to make sure that that can happen. One of the things we've heard from our business community, and this, we've got a lot of manufacturing, right, in our region, and people have to be at work. They have to be at the location. And so because of that, there's been some issues with especially second shift, third shift workers. What strategies can come into play to help them with those issues? And so that's the type of things that this plan and this program will be working on. And so we're, in addition, and in parallel to doing this program stand up, we're also working with our partners to get funding to help businesses with the issues that they're having. One of the other projects that's kind of rolling out is we heard a lot that where people are using transit, sometimes they need to get on another transit service. So they might use a light rail, but then they need to get up to Concord, or they might be in another county and they need to get into Mecklenburg, or vice versa. They may be in Mecklenburg and they need to get over to Gaston. So what do those connection points look like where they're hitting different transit services? What are the fares like? Are the schedules coordinated? All those kind of nitty gritty on the ground things. Our transit operators were raising that up as like, this is a major issue. We need to talk more about this. And so that's one of the projects that we're moving forward and actually seeking funding on for that, for a lot of that work. So as I noted before, the Advancing the Plan Committee is starting to think about how we talk about Connect Beyond. They're specifically wanting to think about how they talk to their constituents about it. They're wanting to think about how they talk to folks in Raleigh about it. And they wanted to take this opportunity to get some input from you on your thoughts about different messages and how they might resonate with different groups. So we're going to take about 30 seconds for first of all, does everyone have a phone? Does anyone not have a phone? If you know how to do a QR code, you can use the QR code. If you would like to go to the website, it's www.pollev.com/Centralina. Let me just give you a few minutes to see if we can bring that up.
Y'all need one. Here, throw that one down that way. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Should be this.
We weren't fast enough.
Yeah, so has everyone gotten to at least question one? Okay, great. Y'all are a great crowd. Y'all have done this before. That's awesome. So I'm going to walk around and just make sure everybody's set. But I'd like to introduce Assistant Planning Director Jason Wager, who's actually on the phone. He's going to run us through this because, I've got so he's going to share his screen. Do you need the mouse?
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And I think once the screen sharing stops on your end, I can hopefully share my screen. I see some folks are already here, starting to get their votes in.
Perfect.
All right, so hopefully you can see that in the room. So as you can see, we'll run through about 10 different messages and ask for you to select up to 2 audiences. There'll be the same 5 audiences with each message. What are those top 2 audiences that need to hear the particular message that we put up? So we'll probably take about 30 seconds or so per message. So we'll start moving rather quickly. But at this point, anyone struggling to get logged in or able to respond? Okay, well, great. Let's just give a few more seconds on this question, but for which audience or audiences does the message "working together as a region make us more competitive for federal transportation grants" best resonate? So right now we've got local elected officials and state lawmakers really seeing that as a valuable message, an important message as it relates to the work we're doing around transportation, specifically the mobility work with Connect Beyond. All right, 10 more seconds and then we'll get on to the next message. All right, so that's great to see. Next item, we need better mobility to increase economic competitiveness for industries and businesses. Who are the top audiences to hear that message? Again, state lawmakers coming up, but seeing the business community as well here, local elected officials jumping in. It's a bit like watching a horse race for a moment, isn't it? Just a few more seconds. And I will mention, we'll be able to capture all this information and this will be shared back with our Advancing the Plan Committee, or incorporated, I guess, into that discussion later this month. This is very valuable input. So it looks like as we wrap this one up, state lawmakers and local elected officials ended up being the top audiences again. So let's keep going. How about the message, help employers access more employees? Okay, I think a clear, and it makes sense, business community jumping out. And the general public as well, often being that source of employees, right? So they need to hear that as well. Okay, let's go on to the next question. All right, for residents need seamless travel to get to work, educational opportunities, medical appointments. So improving access for all. Who does that message best resonate with?
You know, just as people are doing this, stakeholders, whenever you see stakeholders, again, because we have so many new people, that stakeholders can be very inclusive. That's just including, but it could be other stakeholders. Could it not be?
Do you mean
Yeah,
like
that's
technical stakeholders? Is that what we're meaning by that, Michelle?
The
Yes.
stakeholders.
Yeah, so, it listed here, funders, transit providers,
Right.
NPOs, so kind of folks that you keep close.
okay, and just wrap this one up here in a couple seconds, but it looks like, again, local elected officials, this is important, but also the general public, the traveling public is good to hear this as well. Okay, quality of life, creating places where people want to live and have mobility options. Which audiences want to hear this?
Jason, this is our all-star group. Everybody is up and running.
This is great. We had the texting option ready to go too, but this is good when everybody can get up and going. We even got pretty futuristic ourselves, getting the QR codes out for everybody. So again, just as we wrap this one up, this message would resonate, it looks like, heavily with local elected officials and the general public. So quality of life, very good. Let's keep moving. Making the region future ready, planning for growth in a way that maintains quality of life. Who would this message resonate with? Again, local elected officials and state lawmakers coming back up in this case. Just a few more seconds. It looks like, yeah, if we were doing the horse race, the clear winner all the way around the track, state lawmakers and local elected officials. All right. So for which audiences does this message best resonate? Environmental benefits. Okay. This one's a bit this one's a bit more spread out across all those groups, and it may get down to the individual even, I guess, as we speak out. Just a few more seconds on this one, but it looks like state lawmakers and kind of tied for second, local elected officials and general public. All right, let's keep going. Supports the preservation of rural communities and agriculture. So having mobility options supports the preservation of rural communities and agriculture. Resonate heavily right now with local elected officials. And we see general public and state lawmakers again, back and forth. Just a few more seconds on this one. We're all old hats at this now, so we're getting all our votes in quickly. It looks like a dead tie then for state lawmakers and general public. Great. All right, second to last, increasing efficiency of current infrastructure, all modes, including roads. Who does that best resonate with? We for the first time, maybe, well, for a second there, we were seeing stakeholders at the top, but we're back with the local elected officials, appreciating that message, followed by state lawmakers. And just 5 more seconds. Interestingly, nobody in the business community necessarily is gonna go to that message. Okay. All right, last one. For which audiences does the message mobility choices offer alternatives to congestion? Does that resonate with? Probably the general public, probably those using the facilities, followed by local elected officials. So very much a local, those impacted by congestion, having alternatives. It comes out, it looks like, to be the top audience. So followed by local elected officials. It looks like that's where we landed there. So thank you very much for your time. This is going to be very helpful to be woven into the discussion with the Advancing the Plan Committee. As Michelle mentioned, there is homework for that committee as well that's a little bit more extensive than this, but this is one element. And so this will be great to kind of compare and contrast with what we hear from them here in the next couple of weeks. So thank you very much. And I'm going to stop sharing, turn it back over to you at the office.
Jason, and I just wanted to say that the results that you just provided will be incorporated into a frequently asked question sheet that the Advancing the Plan Committee has. That's really what they want to do. That's the end result of this. Something that they collateral that they can provide to. So, thank you so much.
Any questions for Michelle? Mr. Ham, you're on that committee, understand?
Yes,
Any comments or anything? Because you were in this room with.
I'm like 1 meeting in, so, so yeah. So, I mean, the meeting was good. I would say that, you know, it was mentioned about the models that we looked at. That was kind of an interesting exercise to do. And it kind of put things in perspective because as somebody that travels for business, I've been to a lot of those cities, and so I was able to kind of think back about my experiences there and maybe some things that I liked or didn't like about their transportation models. So yeah, I mean, it was an interesting way to do things, and you know, so far 1 meeting in, I've enjoyed it, and I think that it's been productive.
Good. And I say the next meeting for you guys are Friday, March 24th. So we'll get to that. Okay. Very good. Thank you so much. Again, as to receive this information, I direct your attention now to item 10, the aging programs update. I'll call on Linda Miller, Director of Very Aging, who will give an update on funding conferences over the past 60 months regarding all the funds.
Good evening. So I seem to be in the really, really difficult position of being the last thing between you and home. So I apologize, and we will go ahead and try to make it as efficient as possible for you so you can get going. My goal tonight is to go ahead and give you an update. Over the last 2.5 to 3 years, 2 to 3 years, there's been additional funding, federal funding, all of it, for Older Americans Act services. And we just wanted to go ahead and give you sort of an update and what that means from here as some of those funds begin to end. So what we've seen, I'm sorry, Michelle, go back. Sorry.
Look at the slide.
Well, yeah, just because I want to make sure I touch base on a couple of the bold points. We have seen with those additional funding almost a 60% increase in what we would normally get in a normal year to disseminate out to the 9 counties. That's a lot. And those have all been federal funds. such things as CARES, which I do not remember what it stands for anymore, Families First, and which was 100% nutrition money. Supplemental 5 nutrition money was all for meals. And then ARPA is our latest pot of money. These ARPA funds is what we have left, and those will continue until 2024, except that unfortunately, most of our county already, if not a few, have already spent. Nutrition money flies off the shelves for home delivered meals and congregate meals. It just goes quicker than anybody can spend it. The need is so great. So some of it's already gone already. Some do have a little bit left, but in the Aging Network, the last year and a half or so, they've coined the term, not just us, it's a national sort of term, the COVID cliff, that we've received this increase in money. And so what's going to happen to services? Since what we're going to do is go back to services 4 years old. And of course, you would all agree that, you know, our population's aging, you're seeing bigger needs in your counties and you need more. So, you know, that's sort of the term that we've coined. We did a little bit of an informal survey of our 9 counties about a month ago. I gathered some things for Leslie Mazingo, so she could have some data. And we had gone from multiple, probably over half of our counties who had been able with those extra funds to reduce and eliminate their wait list to, you can see for our 9 counties, we're up to almost 4,000 people waiting for services. That is a combination. That could be that they're waiting for an in-home aide to help them with personal services or with cleaning, to waiting for on the meals list. It could be different things, but we lumped them all together. But it's still an astounding number when you think that's our 9 counties. And then of course, what we're trying to do, both us as a region and this North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services, which is under DHHS, is looking at ways to assess where do we go from here? The state has formed a statewide sustainability work group. They haven't started yet, but the last time we were in Raleigh, that's one of their goals too, is to look at moving forward. Next slide.
Question?
Sure.
Who's on this sustainability board?
We haven't received that yet but it is run by the North Carolina Division of Aging and Adult Services. And my guess, because we submitted about 4 AAA directors that wanted to sit on it, and there might be some providers that'll be selected at the local levels that will have input, and of course, then state staff and so forth. Absolutely. All right, so the impact that we've seen so far, I already mentioned that our services have expanded. And what's also been interesting is that this money has included flexibilities and creativity that we have never, in 25 years that I have been here, seen before. Because the needs were new, unique, different, and they allowed that. So that allowed us to be really creative in reaching people that we've never been able to, or weren't aware of our services, didn't want to use our services the way they were. Such things as, and it seems simple to all of you, but a grab and go meal was never allowed. You could not come and grab your meal, either drive through or go into the congregate dining site and grab a meal and go. Just the way it was. And then also groceries and produce was never allowed before. But over the last couple of years, they were. People had different needs. They couldn't get out to get groceries, or they didn't want to go to congregate sites because some were closed, or some, even if they were open, they didn't want to go to. So that was allowed, and that was really creative for us and something that we'd never done before. Also, what was allowed, which was wonderful for the county-based providers, was that ability to use what we call dollar-based services, as opposed to everything has to be a unit rate. Quick example, when you get a home delivered meal, a provider does their unit rate, which can include their labor costs, other costs, you know, and then of course the cost of the meal. So even though the meal may cost $4, their unit rate to deliver that meal might be $9. Because you have to have salary, you have to have people that run the program, deliver the, all those types of things. Well, now, for the first time, some programs were allowed to use dollars-based services, which means if they needed a new truck, if they needed new equipment to it, or if they needed to expand old infrastructure, equipment, delivery boxes, computer equipment, they could finally do that, and you couldn't do that with our money before. So that was really, it was wonderful, and really, I think, met a huge need, particularly for a lot of our nonprofits that really could never get their hands on that money. It was very, very difficult. And then, of course, there were some new services that been developed, such as a chore, which is chore and enhanced chore, are really heavy cleaning, not like the homemaker that might come weekly to help an older adult do cleaning around the home. This was heavy. This was a hoarder who needed help and multiple visits to get that stuff out of there to where it was dangerous. Or somebody who had gotten to that point, maybe a hoarder again, that needed now extermination services. Roaches were bad, pests were bad, their yard, they were unable to get anybody to clean their yard, and it had gotten so overgrown that it was a danger to their neighbors, to you, with pests, mice, whatever. So these things allowed for things we've not been allowed to do before. And then, of course, such things as housing and information assistance. I don't know about all of you, but if I had $1 every day for every call we get about, I can't find a place to live, or we're getting thrown out because our rent's gone up, I'd be a rich woman. And I suspect that all of your counties hear the same thing. They're just, and we've not really been allowed to develop that area of getting into housing, assistance with older adults, helping them look at what's available and to them. Other things such as social isolation costs and services could include helping somebody, particularly in long-term care, get connected with a loved one through iPads, through other ways. So those types of things had never been allowed. So that's just a few examples. The public health emergency will end federally on May 11th, and that's going to end a lot of our flexibilities in these funds. For those that have signed a contract, which is everybody pretty much at this point, they're good to go. They can keep those flexibilities through September 2024. There's not a signed contract, they instantly revert back to the restrictive, basic, general, traditional, let's use that word, Older Americans Act services. All right, and of course, that'll also affect some changes in Medicare, Medicaid, which y'all brought up, the Medicaid expansion and different things, and private insurances that might not cover things that used to be covered. I don't know the specifics of what they are, but we know that there will be changes. And of course, inflation has not helped our services at all. We are seeing record high meal rates. And it's really hard because even if we might get a little shot in the arm next year for the fiscal year 24 funds, the quotes and the service providers who are subcontracting, which is really just about everybody except Cabarrus Meals on Wheels, who cooks their own meals, they're getting caterers and providers who are reflecting the increased cost of food. So we buy less and serve less people for the food. So, it's real easy. Less funding and increased costs is less service. Thanks, Michelle. What are we doing moving forward? Well, one thing we've not done well, and the COG directors have been a huge help in this, helping us advocate for a better system. Right now, we're dealing with a system to help collect data that is being stuck together with duct tape and Band-Aids. And it is not an updated system. So I could tell you exactly I could tell you how many meals were served in your county, how many male, how many female, that kind of thing. But I can't tell you what happened because they received that meal. Did we avoid hospitalization? Were they able to stay in their home longer? So we need better outcomes-based data. So that's something we need to do to convince people that our services work and increase funds you know, whether it's COVID or not, we just need increased funds. That has nothing to do with it. These people's, you know, services. We already talked about the sustainability efforts that our Division of Aging and Adult Services is going to be doing moving forward. There are federal efforts to review updates to the Older Americans Act, which most of it has not been updated since the 60s. So, you know, it's just, it just needs to be modernized. You know, people don't eat that way anymore, go to those types of services. We need to take a look at that. So we have 2 staff members sitting on the nutrition. It's a federal committee, and they're looking at ways to update and taking input from AAA's providers and people across the country as to how we can progress and move forward with updating our senior nutrition programs. We're looking at alternative funding sources, you know. If that's one thing I think Centralina does well, it's we look under every rock, turn over every stone. So we'll continue to do that, you know, whatever you hear of, and if it's anything we can ever help you with, please let us know. And then one thing that Geraldine and I've talked about multiple times is how can we then increase purchasing power, particularly for meals, which let's say is always the top of our list with #1 service. Possible analysis of a regional contract meals rather than having 7 different providers in our region providing meals to the counties. What if there was one and everybody used the 1 or 2 providers that was a contract, and then we could get meals at an unbelievably less expensive rate? Could we buy more meals with that? So I'm not saying it's going to happen, you know, it's just worth taking a look at. And then I think from here, last one, Michelle. So how you can help us, I think advocating for older adult issues and programs in your counties is huge, and I know y'all do. So, but any other things would help us greatly. If you have questions or if you need us to come out to your region and help you or anything like that, please let us know. Geraldine did not steal my thunder, but after you signed in, probably most of you, every year the state does what we call sort of these data packets. I'm just showing you what they look like. They do all 100 counties in a little infographic for your county. They're over there. I copied multiple ones for each county because I didn't know who was coming. So make sure you don't, you know, if there's multiple counties, don't pick up all of them for your county. And I can send you the link. But there's a general North Carolina one. And then I think I made about 15 or so copies of each county, but I can send you the link so you can print your own. But it's amazing data. When you look at what our counties and the huge growth that is going to be over 60, but particularly over 80, I think you'll be shocked and amazed. Michelle, I send her everything, so she's used to seeing everything. But those are over there for you. Use this data when you plan and advocate, because I think it'll really help move people forward. There used to be an old thing, it's like, well, the age wave's coming, the age wave's coming. The age wave's been here. You know, we need to get moving and make sure we can meet the needs of all the older adults in your region. And then, so we ask you to be that connector in your county and let us know. And just sending that consistent messages about what we're trying to do. You know, this money is going to be ending. You know, it may have some negative consequences out in the counties. We're trying to send a consistent message that, you know, and we're working with our county providers to help them craft that so that, say, moving forward, we're looking at this money, we're trying to prioritize most in need and make sure we serve those people. But this will be, some of this money will be going away, definitely by 2024.
And currently that money is going away, correctly, is federal money.
It's all, everything we've received is federal money.
And I think we need to be reminded of that.
Yes.
Aging money is strictly federal money.
Well, no, there's a mix on the regular block grant.
Right.
But on this money, it has been 100% federal with absolutely zero match from anyone, from Centralina, from from the
Local
counties.
or anything, right?
So, all right, so you can contact me, there's my information, but if you have any questions, again, I'm here now if you have anything quick.
I know you made an interesting point about when you got one county with two different agencies, so I serve as a coordinator for Meals on Wheels in Rowan. We have an underlying war with Ruffey Homes on who gonna control the food in one county.
Yes, you do.
And I'm like, can't we just all get along?
Yeah, we have, the only situation similar to that is Camilla's, where it's two agencies, one delivers home delivered meals and one delivers the congregate program, so yeah. Let me know if I can ever answer questions or be of assistance.
Yes, email.
Thank you, Linda. Linda, stick
Absolutely.
around because I'm gonna make
I figured.
the agenda item 11 here just a little bit. Any further comments, questions regarding agenda item 10? Linda mentioned grants. You have been very fortunate over time, as long as I've known you, to receive grants here for your organization. So I think it's great. Okay, anything else on the 10 before we move on to Commissioner Mills' request? Okay, go back to the consent agenda and item 2, approval of U.S. Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaboration Vaccine Grant Award. That has been requested on the regular agenda. I'll make that agenda item 11. Commissioner Helms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I asked for this item to be on the consent agenda for discussion purposes. As I read through the agenda packet, I've got severe concerns with what I read. And I realize I may be in the minority of this board, but I think it's worth mentioning my concerns. As I read through the first page, page 11, the goal of U.S. Aging and our partners in the Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaborative is to secure 2 million COVID-19 and or influenza vaccinations for adults. My first thought when I read that is that, number one, healthcare is not one size fits all. I have severe concerns with the fact that we are creating, well, instead of treating patients, we're shooting for numbers. And my concern with that is that when you set a set number for a goal, you do what you can to meet that goal. I've got severe concerns that there may be some that would look at this as a numbers only type thing rather than caring for the patients and their well-being. So if we look further down, the last bullet under that first section, develop an information, education, and technical assistance online resource hub that will incorporate up-to-date credible data and information on vaccines and vaccine access, including consumer information, promising practices, lessons learned, so on and so forth. So we saw this in the height of COVID. All right, I saw numerous municipalities, counties, states, even our federal government. They produced campaigns for the COVID-19 vaccination. Some of those campaigns were, in my opinion, propaganda. And I did not support them then. I will not support them now as long as the message is accurate and true. So if we're going to educate folks, we need to make sure that we are educating them fully. Just the other day, we had our regular meeting in Union County. The Board of Commissioners met, and I heard from my constituents in Union County, several of which are vax injured, and they were not made aware of the dangers of vaccines. And so I want to be clear when I say this. I'm not pulling this agenda item to be a troublemaker in this board. I'm pulling this agenda item and expressing my concerns, not because I don't care for the elderly or the disabled, but because I do care. And I care about how these messages are disseminated throughout our communities. If you look on page 12, vaccination clinic and in-home vaccination engagement. In-home vaccination engagement. I have a hard time picturing this, and I have a hard time picturing how it is that this would be performed by medical professionals going into the homes of our elderly and disabled folks who may have difficult time in understanding the dangers of vaccines. All right. Now listen, I'm not an anti-vax person completely, but I do recognize that all vaccines are not necessarily safe for all individuals. Further down, under general vaccination booster information and outreach, bullet number 2, conduct COVID vaccine booster outreach, education, and material dissemination utilizing generalized or targeted campaigns. Goes back to what I said before about municipalities, governments, counties, states, whatnot, using these propaganda campaigns to essentially say, hey, you're not doing your part unless you're vaccinated. To be clear, there are some people in our communities that cannot take vaccinations. There are some people in our communities that are unaware of underlying health concerns that these vaccines can trigger. Let's see here. My other note is that how do we define credible information? This is mentioned several times in our outreach and what they intend to do with this money. How do we define credible information? Okay, now look, there's no secret, all right? There's no secret that vaccine injuries are on the rise. And, you know, everybody has strong feelings on this. But what I will say is that there is very real data that supports vaccine injuries from the COVID-19 vaccination. Very real data. And for too long, the folks of our region, our counties, our municipalities, our state, and even our federal government, in my opinion, have been coerced to take a COVID-19 vaccination. For my 2 cents and for my opinion, our board just voted on Monday night to support a resolution in support of North Carolina House Bill 98. You guys may be familiar with that. It's called the Medical Freedom Act. I brought that resolution before our board and I was happy to do so. For my 2 cents and for my opinion, I cannot support the motion to approve the funding or the grant award with the limited information that I have currently and from what I read in our agenda package. So I would make the motion that we deny accepting the U.S. Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaboration Vaccine Grant Award in the amount of $295,750.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
I would like to say as well, I brought this to our commission, and on Monday night, we also approved House Bill 98 in support of the Medical Freedom Act. I spoke with our House Representative, Wayne Sasser, who told me Monday afternoon that he feels very strongly that this bill is going to pass. He knows there are 61 votes, but he believes that this will pass with a 72 majority, which would make it veto proof. So this would give our kids, kindergarten through universities, the opportunity to choose whether or not to be vaccinated. Athletes would not have to choose to be, they would not have to be vaccinated to play a sport in a university. And it would also allow our schools to allow for a choice of masking. It would also not treat the unvaccinated any differently from the vaccinated in quarantine rules. And so it would eliminate those unfair quarantine rules. And so I also supported this, and we had we had a majority, but it was a 6-1 vote in favor of that. So we're sending that on to Raleigh, and I think it's a victory because we need that choice. I can give plenty of anecdotal information. I work in healthcare, and it used to be quiet. The nurses and the people that I work with used to talk quietly about what do you feel about this? What do you feel about that? People are a lot more willing to talk now about things that they're experiencing or things that they're seeing. And I have personal stories in my own family. So I feel strongly about sticking up for choice. And so knowing what I know this vaccine can do to people. And we had a board certified doctor in family, functional, and osteopathic medicine to present for about 20 minutes. If you care to look on YouTube, you can look up the Stanley County Commissioner meeting and you can listen to his professional insight. And it's really phenomenal. Dr. Amir Kuastani, he's very accomplished. And he's been practicing medicine for over 20 years. He's not lost a patient in this because he's had early treatment. And it's not to wait and see how you do and go to the hospital, it's with medicines. And he's been doing that. These medicines have been, slap your hands and you can't talk about it because it doesn't make pharma any money. And I'm just not gonna sit here in this position of leadership and keep my mouth shut. So I'm gonna fully support this, that we reject this funding to protect the older Americans who may not have a voice themselves.
One more point of discussion that I want to share with the group. We also had a medical professional provide a statement at our meeting. And one of the things that she pointed out, her name is Dr. Kristen Strange, a pediatrician that resides in Union County, North Carolina. One of the things that she pointed out that I thought was very telling is that this vaccine does not prevent the transmission of COVID-19. So I want to be clear about that, and I'll just say this, and I'll let the vote happen. I know of someone personally who I talked about the vaccine to recently, and I asked this lady who was elderly. I said, because she brought up the fact that she had been vaccinated. I said, well, how many vaccines have you had? Now, understand this is an elderly woman, and she said, I've had 4 or 5. I said, well, wait. I said, I'm not talking about boosters. I said, I'm talking about actual vaccinations. She's like, oh, yeah, I had the Johnson & Johnson. I had the Moderna. I had 2 Modernas. No, I had at least 2 Johnson & Johnsons. And I was like, how many boosters have you had? And she said, at least 5 that I know of. And I said, that you know of? And listen, folks, these right here are our elderly people. And I understand that everybody in this room has strong feelings about helping our elderly. We should care for those folks, but we also can't take advantage of them either. And so that's why I made the motion. Thank you.
Linda Miller, this is your agenda item, so I'd like for you to speak on that.
Well, it is federal funding. It is a part of what we do. It is distributed through ACL, just like all of our other Older Americans Act funding. It is very broad-based, and I know that, COVID, I think that's great, Commissioner Howells, that you've spoken of. I think it's important that both sides. But this is able to be utilized for shingles vaccines, pneumonia vaccines, and flu vaccines. Now, it's not flu season, so that won't help us much right now, but as the fall comes. And the other thing that we do is that people do make that choice. There is not one of our senior centers, one of our congregate programs, as they all are open back up. Well, I think maybe one county isn't open back up, where we demand anyone. And if they accept the funding, no one has to be vaccinated to return to any of those programs where there's no requirement. This is informational in nature. They can make that decision. And if they want it, and if they cannot get vaccinated for anything, for the flu, for the shingles, for anything, we're to serve as a resource for how to get them connected, to get what they want. Again, this isn't, any requirement for anyone. We want everyone to make up their mind for what's right for them.
Question, what type of informed consent is handed out as far as side effects?
That's all when they get that through their doctor or through the clinic that they go to get the shot. We don't get involved in the shot.
So I'm familiar with what like Atrium gives out and what Novant gives out because I'm in and out of those practices a lot, and it's always localized swelling, low-grade fever, and that sort of thing. And that's not informed consent. That's a lie. So I can't support it.
One of my concerns is the information that is given to them because it has been all over the place. And are they able to disseminate the information as they get older? Or are they just relying on, well, the doctor told me this, so it has to be right? I have very personal feelings against this. My doctor is not in one of the conglomerates, as I call them. So he did treat his patients for COVID and was very successful. I don't think he lost a patient. And in fact, is very concerned that patients died that didn't because they weren't treated. my mother died of the cause of the vaccine, so I have a very personal feeling, so. And going on what we thought was true. And there are a lot of people that helped, or at least it didn't affect, I'll say it didn't affect, I don't know if it helped as far as COVID goes. But, so it is a very personal thing to me, so I appreciate you guys speaking out. I was the only one that voted against an incentive program for our employees to be vaccinated in the city because only 35% had chosen to be vaccinated. They were given an incentive to be vaccinated and another incentive if they could get 75% of the employees to be vaccinated. To me, that was a horrible thing to do to our employees, to pit them against one another and to make some feel like heroes and some feel like they were hurting other people. So it is very personal for me.
Mayor Pro Tem Hall.
Just if we go back to the issue that's on the agenda, okay? And I appreciate all of my constituents' comments, okay? I had folks who have died because of it or who have died not because of it too, very close. But I think if we go back to the issue that's before us on the agenda, and like I said, I appreciate your comments. This money is not just for COVID. Is that correct? Correct. And I think that I think with the COVID vaccines, that has just put everything else in front of people. That's what's brought House Bill 98 to the front. But we're not talking about House Bill 98 right now. We're talking about this money right here. And this money is inclusive of COVID, but it's also inclusive of those other kinds of vaccines, okay? Who over the years, nobody has ever really questioned. I mean, until COVID came up, you know, there are people that would take everything that's out there, okay? And I appreciate your numbers thing, Brian, that it's all about numbers, it's all about numbers. But I'm also realizing that this is money that we would receive, and I've not been able to figure out by looking at the agenda. Is this money that would be through end of fiscal year 24? Is that what we're looking at? Is this
It would end in the spring of 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this, and I see that on here, and I see when the different reports were due, some in 23 and some in 24. But this is federal money?
Yes.
This is federal money, so if it's ending in April, it's actually ending in mid-year for them, for the federal money. Is that correct? That's in April,
Yeah,
or October, November.
yeah.
Okay. I appreciate what's being given out. The information being given out when the information pros and cons and what they sign. But I would be in support of receiving this money because it's inclusive of other things in addition to just COVID.
So with that being said, when you look at page 11 through that, there's no mention of the other vaccine. In fact, it says the third bullet point down is to provide and promote COVID-19 and influenza. It doesn't say anything about shingles, didn't say anything about anything. You look through there, the goal of the partnership is to secure 2 million COVID vaccines.
And
the flu vaccines, but flu is not shingles. Flu is flu.
No, I'm sorry. They've just added shingles and pneumonia last week because they wanted it to be broader based. These, you know, what I've included in the packet is the scope of work for the national grant that was received through the administration of community living. And what we've been able to do and what is the expansion for it to be very broad-based. And we tend to do what we do well in Centralina because we're going to partner with our planning department and Michelle's team to analyze information, get that out, look at areas of where there's need for people, maybe where there's low shingles vaccines or low flu vaccines. So we really tend to want to we're not healthcare providers. We don't want to go there. We want to disseminate information. That's what we've always done best. We're not a direct service provider through Centralina, through the AAA. And that's really what we want to focus on. And these grants do give you the ability to stay in your sweet spot. There are AAAs that have nurses that work for them, and they will do shots. We don't have to, regardless of it, whether it's shingles, COVID, anything.
And I think
So-
maybe to that point, Linda, if I may, and I fully respect the opinions and the experiences that everyone has shared, and we certainly want to make sure that this work is done right and to the wishes of the board and serves the needs of older adults across our region. I think what you have in your board packet, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, is the generalized scope of work at a national level. And if Commissioner Helms and Commissioner Crump are amenable, what I might recommend is that we take this item off of your agenda. We come back to you in April with a more specific scope of work to what we're going to do in our region, taking into consideration the feedback you gave us tonight. And potentially if our partners at US Aging, we have to ask, would be amenable to only focusing on influenza, shingles, and non-COVID vaccinations. If the board is interested in pursuing that, we're happy as staff to come back to you with an alternative proposal, or you can proceed as you have made a motion on tonight.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Will we still be able to apply a policy like that, or will that not fall underneath, will we not meet the requirements for the funding?
That's what we need to check. That's what we need to determine. This is a national grant. I'm sure there are communities across the country that are having the same conversation. So I would imagine that our partners will need, if they haven't already been asked, to come up with some alternatives that make communities and providers comfortable, so that people have choice. And I think that's what we all want.
And I would say, I thank you very much for being amenable and, trying to find a good solution. I know my answer will remain no to this because I don't trust the process. I've lost trust in our institutions. I know that the flu vaccine is being created with mRNA technology now, just as the COVID-19 is. And I've read enough about that to know that I don't want to approve a dollar going to it. So it'll still be a no for me.
I agree. My motion stands.
Commissioner Helms, would you be willing to withdraw that to do what our executive director stated?
No.
To next month, you will not.
No.
We have a motion on the table. We've had discussion. I just wanted to say one thing too. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. I have asthma. COVID attacked my lungs. I stopped breathing twice. I haven't had the flu since I started taking the flu shot. And I had shingles years ago, but I just went and got that. So I got relatives I have that think as you and have said some of the same things. I've had friends to pass. And so it's a tough situation. But I do know I died twice, 3 years ago. And through the first part of 2020, I lost 17 pounds. I could not function. I still shake on my left side. I go to my doctor every 3 months. I got long lingering effects. Sometimes I have brain fog. That's why I got all these papers up here. And that's why I have her make my notes for me. Because that's when I can function is if I have it in front of me. Otherwise, I can't do this, whether it's my town board or you guys or talking to somebody downtown Mooresville. So that's just me. That's just me. We have a motion on the table. We have a second. We've had discussion. Anyone else before?
If someone will restate the motion, I think that everybody needs to realize what we're talking about.
Okay, that'd be Commissioner Helms.
So the motion is to deny the acceptance of the US Aging and Disability Vaccination Collaboration Vaccine Grant Award in the amount of $295,750.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor of the motion?
Discussion.
Yes.
What, maybe?
Yes.
If this
Fails.
item fails.
Or if it passes.
Passes, I mean, if this
Motion
passes,
passes.
will we have the opportunity to bring it back and follow that lead, Geraldine's lead
If you would like to, we're happy to.
as a motion?
Yeah, I think we can do that in a different form or fact. I mean, but then again, we don't know if it's gonna take or not.
I know.
We don't know if we're gonna accept it. If it fails.
I agree with this, but I also know that flu shots been around for a long time and
Right.
do help.
Yeah.
And shingles,
And
I keep
shingles.
getting bugged to get one of these days, but I won't. But having the opinion of your own doctor helps, so I'm curious.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny, as Commissioner Ham stated? All in favor? Let's raise hands, we have a split vote.
Eight.
We have
Any
eight.
on the, I think.
Anyone
Commissioner-
called in or anybody virtual here in the conversation, agree with the motion to deny?
Councilmember Anderson, I think, is the only one left.
I'm still here.
Thank you.
Motion to support the motion? Did you?
This is in support, correct?
Support your motion to deny. That's what I have. We have eight.
We did.
We have eight. Those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand.
Councilmember Anderson, do you care to weigh in?
I'm opposed to this motion.
Thank you. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven.
Motion passes. The motion to deny passes. One vote, 8-7.
So now I would like to offer a second motion. Okay, if this one is not going to pass, as it is right now, that we have authorized staff to contact whomever on here, the feds, to see if we can broaden some parts of it or narrow down as needed to see what can be inclusive with the use of this money. Which would be specifically the vaccine, I mean, what vaccines and
exclusive of.
yes, and what can be done and how you're gonna do it, and that's kind of what I was asking. I think that's what you were asking, Linda. No. It's what Geraldine said.
Correct.
I think that we move forward, if it's not approved in this stand, then what can we do, or what can we move forward to see how we can utilize that money?
So we can come back to the board in April with a report.
And is that gonna is another month going to hold us back from the receiving that money? I couldn't tell from the dates on here.
Yes, because we can immediately have the money instantly, so.
Okay, so that will be fine still.
So we would have less and less time to spend the money.
Right, okay.
I have a question. So for instance, because I want to second your motion. Could it be, and this is what we want to find out, could it be like just flu, shingles, and pneumonia?
I think that's what we would
That's what we're gonna
inquire.
try to ask.
Yes.
Limit the scope and then come up with a specific scope of work for our region that is in support of what the national organization needs to do, but addresses concerns raised and narrows the focus. That's what we would be seeking to negotiate.
I just wanted to make sure. So I second her motion.
I've just got discussion. Point of discussion. Yes. So, like I said, it seems like the overall goal was this, like we were saying, with numbers, right? But pretty much the rest of the document, right, has to deal a lot with collaborative efforts, development, training, peer-to-peer engagement. Like I know I would be more in support of it if that was more the focus, right? As to oppose as, let's see how many, right? And so, but I do think that there are some items here that I still have a little bit, when I start to see things like vaccine hesitancy training and things like that, that's one of the main reasons why I supported the motion. But I think even moving forward, I think, I don't think anybody wants to take away anybody's choice, right? But seems to be quite a slant, going through this, even though I know that this was not put together by Centralina, but this is the general, right? And so I think those are the issues that I think that I personally have.
Is the money tied directly to the number? Because I see the reporting, so I wonder what the correlation is there.
No, we don't have to give one shot. Well, not give a shot, we're not giving any shot. But we don't have to say that because of us, we helped somebody get a ride to their doctor who gave them the shot, or something. We don't have to do one.
So the 295,000.
That's the general national goal. And, you know, like I said, the beauty of some of these grants to me is they're very broad based as far as the deliverables. And it's not saying, well, of that 2 million, I have to do this many, or something like that. And like I said, our strength has always been education and getting information out for Centralina, period. And that's what, you know, that's what we want to do. And we're excited because we were able to include shingles and flu and pneumonia.
I just wondered if there were benchmarks tied to the amount. Are they just writing the
No.
check?
Yep.
And then we are just doing reporting?
Yeah.
Correct. What kinds of outreach was conducted,
Yeah,
materials presented?
I went to a health fair and we brought all kinds of information and reached 400 people at the health fair. We got together, you know, a committee, like with the last grant, we have some updated information on, you know, shots and vaccines on our website, those types of things.
Okay, we have another motion for a second. Any more discussion? All in favor of Martha Sue's motion?
Aye.
Aye.
I support it as well. This is Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you, Councilman Anderson. All opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you.
So we will come back to you in April with more information, of what we learned, and you can decide at that time how you'd like to proceed.
All right. That concludes item 11. We will now end our meeting. Comments from the executive board and Centralina staff. Anybody else have anything to say?
So
Martha Sue?
just some reiteration of things. We've got 2 new appointed members, and the reason we have appointed members is sort of to even out things. Is that correct? I think everybody, we need to know.
It's in the bylaw, like the chair can appoint 2 at-large members, and we consult with the chair on qualities or geographic presence.
Thrilled to do that. Thrilled that we have that.
Large city, small
That's,
town.
I love it.
Yeah.
So at our last meeting in February, when we had all the delegates here, we each got a notebook, okay? From what I heard you all tonight, the call out there is to we in different counties need to encourage our other compadres in our county to be active. Is that something that we need to say, or we can get those notebooks and go out or deliver, or how are we gonna do that? Number one. And number two, is this something that we need to get to those delegates, Linda, or is this things that we just need to get to the county? Or do you don't, you, whatever?
We
Okay.
use it for everybody, we give
Okay,
our
so-
volunteers.
Good. So back to the notebook issue, because I think that, you know, we saw in February, the low number of attendees, and we need to do whatever we can do to help make sure that every municipality gets somebody and that our county folks are here. So how can we do that?
So the materials in the book were distributed electronically to everyone, including who attended.
Right.
We've done personal emails to anyone who missed the meeting, asking, do you need help, support, information, how can we, you know, to connect? I would love your support if I could send out by county, who were we missing in February? And then as we get closer to the May meeting, maybe to be able to come back to you all and say, we're gonna be doing some outreach, we'd love to copy you, and if you could help make the connection, support people going, I'm driving in, would you like a ride? I think that would be the best and probably most efficient way to proceed. If folks want a hard copy, they've said, tell Marissa, we'll mail one out to you.
And follow up to that is that it may be advantageous for each of us to know who in our counties, just like you said, are supposed to strike, I don't like to say that, but supposed to be here and who we're missing. I know that I know, but again, we've got other counties could have lots of folks here, not here at the executive board, but the board of delegates. I think it would be good following up that these are the towns that are members, who we got and who we don't have. Last thing is just for our being cautious is that we need to make sure that door is unlocked during our meeting time. I think it is still locked right now, okay? If it's something that we need, is it not locked? Okay, it was locked earlier, and I just think at 5 o'clock or whenever it locked, we just need to make sure that door stays unlocked. And there's a stormwater meeting tomorrow, is that right, that the Charlotte Mecklenburg is putting on?
It's really gonna be great.
Okay, so if you'll give us the 2 seconds on that, so how to get there. It's Zoom as well, right?
You can Zoom or it's on Subtle Avenue.
Okay. But we can zoom in. Okay. I just knew you had reported that, and I'm thinking that would be a good thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, Mayor. Thank you. Any other comments from executive board or staff? Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, Anderson.
In the spirit of embracing a hybrid meeting format, as we move forward with next meetings, can we just state who we are as we're speaking? Because it's sort of difficult to see on a video. I know certain voices, but then we have new voices in the room. I think if everyone could just state who they are before they speak.
Yes, ma'am. Very good point. So we'll try to remember that, or as a reminder, whoever speaks, just somebody remind somebody. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
You think so?
This is Mecklenburg County Commissioner Elaine Powell.
Commissioner Anderson, good job.
Fantastic.
I was gonna say that it's so interesting that I get to sit next to David Scholl because we were in an advanced leadership work group for Braver Angels, which Jennifer Stupp is involved with. Is it Braver or Better? Angels?
It was started as Better, but it's Braver now.
Okay, so we were in this Braver Angel seminar for 2 days together. And what happened here tonight was kind of something that would have happened there with different viewpoints of things. And I just want to thank you for bringing a different viewpoint, because we have to consider different viewpoints to make the best decisions. And that if this does happen, it'll be better because of your input. And so I think when we left there, the most important thing was that remember that everyone comes into the room, like assume that they come with good intentions. Because my background is in healthcare. And so we all have different life experiences.
That's what I'm saying, different experiences.
Yes, and so, you know, being able to be in this environment and talk about it and make things better, because, you know, when you were talking about, it's so important to be cared for, it can't be about numbers. I came to work with the Sisters of Mercy when I came here, and our whole philosophy was holistic, you know, like caring for the patient, not about profit, not about numbers. And so when you were talking about that, I had the same exact feeling. I don't want it to be about numbers. So how do we make it better? And I think the dialogue tonight made it better. Yeah. So thank you.
That's the best thing that's been said tonight. Thank you, Commissioner. Good job.
Thank you.
Anything else? Comments from Executive Director.
Thank you for saying that, Commissioner. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the dialogue and discussion. This is a great first meeting of the season. This is regionalism in action, which, to take a quote from Kelly, makes our hearts sing. That you all are talking and engaging and contributing. So we love that. Thank you. Not so fun topic, ARPA reporting is coming up. So more federal dollars with strings. American Rescue Plan Act funding performance reports, annual reports are due April 30th. We are making personal phone calls to each community in the region, checking in with staff to make sure they know what they need to do, if they need support to come to us. So if that applies to your communities, please let us know how we can help. We want to make sure everyone meets that deadline, and you're a resource. And that's all I have.
Thank you. And just and in my comments, I'll start with this. If we all agree on everything before, something's wrong with us. We're not supposed to do that. So that's really good. But if you haven't already, please take the time to review and complete the Centralina Delegate Interest Survey form. It was sent out in the February 8th delegate report. And then on Thursday, May 18th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Centralina will host a grant writing workshop titled Strategy and Metrics for a Successful Annual grant plan. The training is free for Centralina members. Non-members welcome to attend for a fee of $20. And the next meeting of the executive board will be on April the 12th. So hope to see you there. No further business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Please be careful.
Okay, I'm at you. Nice to meet you. How are you? Good, I'm saying. It's so like that. I'm trying to get it. It's all right.